All right, so from here, let me talked a little bit about Hitler's reoccupation of the Rhineland. Like I said, this area known as the Rhineland. It goes from the Netherlands through Belgium. This is Luxembourg. This is France. And in the Treaty of Versailles, like I said, this was forbidden. But in 1936, Germany went into the Rhineland, and the League of Nations appeased Germany. Now, in 1937, the Japanese invaded um, southern China, Shanghai and Nanking. You may have heard of the rape of Nanking. There, the Japanese soldiers raped and brutalized and murdered the civilians savagely. In fact, the Japanese government has never acknowledged, let alone apologized for the atrocities their soldiers committed during World War II. Um, after over a half of a century, their textbooks still make no mention of these things, just in sharp contrast to the um, German textbooks that are very open about the Holocaust. Nonetheless, I mean, again, the League of Nations did nothing. And this is a picture. You don't really see it too well, but this is bodies. And this is a Japanese soldier here. Now, not to be hypocritical, obviously, I mean, when we started bombing cities in Japan and in Germany, the United States killed many civilians as well. So, we always have to think about that. Um, Now, going back to Hitler, in 1938, Hitler invaded Austria. Now, this is March 12th, 1938. It virtually unopposed. The Germans quickly conquered the nation. Uh, Historians believe, they may be wrong, but historians believe that roughly 50% of the Austrians supported unification. They wanted what was known as Anschluss. Okay, this was a unified, all the German-speaking people in Europe in one nation. And if you think about it, you kind of, if it wasn't for Hitler and if it wasn't for the Nazi Party, I mean, that wouldn't be so crazy. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of people in the League of Nations appeased Hitler in doing this. It's like, well, Austria is part of. I mean, it is German speaking. The German that's spoken there is a little bit different than the German, but I mean, it's the same thing in Germany. I mean, if you go to the southern part of Germany, it's a little bit different than around Berlin, for example. One of my professors I had when I was working on my master's degree in history wrote a paper, and she called this Anschluss, or the invasion of Austria, the Bier- und Blumenkrieg, which in English is the Beer and Flowers War, because many of the Austrians gave the Germans beer and flowers. In 1938, Hitler threatened to annex the Sudetenland. Now, this is a shot of what today is the Czech Republic. I mean, this is not, I probably should have put another image up there, but this is all the German speaking areas in what today is the Czech Republic. Now, then it was Czechoslovakia, so it went out farther east. And this area here is the Sudetenland, and Germany threatened to take over the Sudetenland. Now, the thing is along this border, there are mountains. And so these mountains kind of protected the rest of Czechoslovakia from any kind of invasion from Germany. And so, of course, they really did not want Germany to have control of this area here, because this was kind of a buffer area, kind of a mountainous region. And as a result, there was what was known as the Munich Conference. And the Munich Conference, there was several conferences, all right, where they brought leaders in around Europe. One, I guess the most famous leader, of course, was Adolf Hitler, but you had Mussolini, but you also had the Prime Minister of Great Britain, a guy by the name of Neville Chamberlain. And it was a series of conferences to talk about this, about Hitler's threat to take over the Sudetenland. And Neville Chamberlain eventually appeased Hitler and pretty much allowed him, hey, look, go ahead, y'all can go ahead and take it. Neville Chamberlain went back to Great Britain and said this means peace in our times. Now, this was the famous, like I said, the famous Munich conference. And I have a map here that kind of, I'm not going to get into detail here, but this is Czechoslovakia, all of this. And so part one, but one here is the Sudetenland. And like I said, that would be considered now part of the Third Reich. And number 5 here is the rest of the Czech area of Czechoslovakia, where they speak Czech, and that was going to be a protectorate of Germany. And this was kind of considered sort of the height of appeasement. Now, everybody was fine with it. I mean, everybody looks, at Neville Chamberlain as this great appeaser, but what people have to understand is that everybody pretty much went along with him at that time. There was someone, however, named Winston Churchill, who did not agree with this policy of appeasement. One time, a socialist member of the parliament, Lady Astor, was a great fan of Joseph Stalin. She hated Winston Churchill so much that she once declared, "Winston, if you were my husband, I'd put poison in your coffee." To which Churchill replied, "Madame, if you were my wife, I'd drink it." And we'll talk a little bit more about Churchill in a second.